Today is September 27th, 2025, and this is William Michael, Headmaster of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. In this video, I'd like to provide students with some help studying Aesop's fable titled The Lion and the Mouse. The Lion and the Mouse. This is lesson 23 in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy's Aesop's Fables course. The Lion and the Mouse. What we'll do in this talk, as we always do for Aesop's Fables, is we'll read through the fable carefully. We'll then talk about the details in the fable to make sure we understand all the information that it contains, and then we'll think about the moral lesson of this fable. We'll then talk about the characters and the events of the story and why Aesop would choose the characters and events that he did to teach this moral lesson. And lastly, we'll talk about how this lesson applies to our lives today. So let's study together Aesop's fable of the lion and the mouse. A lion, tired with the chase, lay sleeping at full length under a shady tree. Some mice, scrambling over him while he slept, awoke him. Laying his paw upon one of them, he was about to crush him, but the mouse implored his mercy in such moving terms that he, the lion, let him go. Sometime later, the lion was caught in a net laid by some hunters and was unable to free himself and made the forest resound with his roars. The mouse, whose life had been spared, came, and with his little sharp teeth soon gnawed the ropes asunder and set the lion free. This is the fable of the lion and the mouse. Let's think about the details of this fable, because understanding the fable always depends on us understanding all the details in that fable. So we read about a lion, and what do we know about a lion? Lions are the king of the jungle, right? The most powerful, ferocious animals in the world. So we've got this large, powerful, terrible animal, the lion, and he's sleeping under a shady tree. He's resting. It says sleeping at full length, all spread out, sleeping in the cool of a shady tree. He was sleeping because he was tired because he was hunting before, and having finished hunting, he's now resting and cooling down, taking a rest under a tree. And while this lion, this tired lion, is trying to rest, some mice, little, tiny, annoying creatures, are running over his body while he sleeps, and they wake him up. And you can imagine how annoyed this lion would be to be woken up and look around and find that it's a couple of annoying little mice running around that woke him up. And so he slaps his paw down on top of one of them as it's running. And as he holds this mouse down with his paw, he's thinking to himself that he might just crush it, might just smash it to death, being angry about being woken up while he was resting. But the mouse begins begging him. It says implored. That means begged his mercy. And what does mercy mean? Mercy means being kind to someone, even if they don't deserve it. It means sometimes not giving them what they actually deserve, but being kind to them even if they don't deserve it. The mouse could say, I'm sorry, I know I was being annoying. I shouldn't have bothered you like that. I'm sorry. Please don't smash me into the ground. So the mouse begged the lion to be merciful. And the lion was merciful. The lion let him go, spared his life. And then we read that sometime later, could be days, could be months, could be years, the lion was caught in a net, a trap set by some hunters. They set out a net in the forest to trap an animal, and the lion walked into the net and got trapped. And we can imagine the lion being very angry, maybe, I wouldn't say scared, but upset to realize that he was stuck in this trap. And like the fable tells us, he couldn't get himself out. He was trapped. And so he started screaming with his loud, terrible roars. I don't know if you've ever heard a lion's roar. I don't mean on TV. I mean in real life. If you go to a zoo and hear a lion roar, you can hear it all the way across the zoo. So deep and powerful, really terrifying. And we're told that the whole forest was filled with the lion's roars. This big, powerful, terrible animal was trapped, and he was angry and fighting for his life. And who can save this lion? Who could come to rescue the strongest and most terrible animal in the forest? Well, the lion wasn't being beaten up by some bigger, more terrible animal. The lion is the king of the forest, the king of the jungle. What was actually defeating the lion was simply a net made out of rope. So this lion's enemy was some rope. The lion could kill any animal, but he couldn't get free from this rope net that he was trapped in. But for a mouse, a rope is no problem, because a mouse has these tiny little scissor-like teeth, and the mouse was able to go and help the lion. And he heard the lion roaring. He knew the lion was in trouble. Something was wrong. And so the mouse ran to the lion and chewed through the rope. And once the ropes broke, after the mouse chewed through them, the lion was set free. So now we understand all the details of this fable of the lion and the mouse. What is the moral lesson of this fable? Well, we see the lion, and the lion represents a certain kind of person. The lion represents a powerful person. And the mouse represents a small, weak person. We could say the lion represents a powerful, wealthy king, or just any strong person, and the mouse represents someone weak and poor who can only live if the big, strong person is nice to him. And we can see the mouse doing something annoying, making a mistake, and this big, powerful lion, this big, powerful person, thinking about how to respond. Maybe he should just crush him. And the mouse begs for, and this is very important, the mouse begs for mercy. The mouse says, please, lion, please have mercy. I'm sorry, please have mercy. Please don't punish me as I deserve. Please be kind to me. Be merciful to me. And what we see is the lion choose to show mercy. He could have been a tough guy. He could have showed off his strength. He could have tried to impress his friends and punished this little mouse. But he didn't. He chose not to use his strength to hurt the mouse. and he let the mouse go. He was merciful. And why is it important to be merciful? Jesus teaches us why it's important to be merciful. He says, "Be merciful that you may receive mercy." He says, "Blessed are the merciful. They will receive mercy." Blessed are the merciful. They will receive mercy. And we see an example of that in this fable. The lion chooses to be merciful to the mouse, and in due time, that mercy comes back to help him. That mouse hears him roaring and says, "Oh no, that's the lion who was merciful to me. I owe him a favor. I need to go help him because he was merciful to me." And so the mouse goes and helps the lion, just as the lion was kind and helped the mouse. So the mouse knew that he owed the lion a favor because the lion had been merciful. And so the moral of this fable is to be merciful, to not use our strength, to not allow ourselves to act in anger, to act unreasonably. The lion could have just smashed all those mice to pieces, but he didn't, because there's more to life than just trying to show how strong we are or defeating other people. There's more to life than that, and sometimes we may be the ones in trouble because there are others stronger than us. There's no animal in the forest stronger than the lion, but man, because of his intelligence, is stronger than a lion. And that mouse saved the lion from his enemy, man, intelligent, rational man who designs a trap, makes a net that can capture a lion. So the moral lesson is to be merciful. Just because we're strong doesn't mean we should be cruel, doesn't mean we should use our strength to hurt other people. In fact, the name gentleman, a gentleman, is a man who is strong, usually powerful, wealthy, but he doesn't use his strength to hurt other people. He's merciful. He uses his strength to help other people. He's merciful. And we can think of many good examples of this in life, many applications. And I'll give you some simple suggestions to think about for this fable of being merciful, this lesson of being merciful. Sometimes kids can be very cruel. Kids want to be respected by other kids. And sometimes they think that the way to get respect from other kids is to pick on a weak kid. And so they may bother a weak kid, pick on a weak kid, and try to show off and bully that little kid around to try to impress other people. But one day, the bully, that kid picking on somebody else, one day that kid's going to get into trouble. And when he does, no one is going to help him. If he's in trouble, if someone bigger or older starts to pick on him, the other kids are going to stand there and say, he gets what he deserves. He deserves to get beat up because he's always bothering everybody else. I'm not going to help him. He deserves to get beat up. He deserves to get put in his place by somebody else. He needs to learn to pick on people his own size. And so what happens is if we're not merciful, other people do not want to be merciful to us, don't want to help us when we're in trouble. Jesus teaches a good lesson about this in his parables, which are like fables. He said, once there was a servant who was poor, and he owed his master a great debt. He owed his master tons of money, tons of money. He was in real trouble. He owed his master tons of money. And he went to his master, and he was like the mouse in the fable. He said, please, please be patient with me, please. I'll do my best to pay you back, please. Be merciful to me. And the master, who was a powerful, wealthy man, chose to be very merciful. And he said, you know what? I can see that you're sorry that you couldn't pay your debt. You know what? I'm just going to cancel your debt. You can go. You don't need to pay me anything. Don't worry about it. And the master was amazingly merciful to his servant and let him go and told him his debt was canceled. And so that servant went home, back to his own home. And when he was there, Jesus said, it turns out that there was another servant who owed him money, who owed this servant who had been forgiven all his debt. There was another servant who owed him some money. And how did he treat that other servant? He went and he grabbed him by the throat and said, pay me what you owe. And the servant was very, very mean to that other servant and was not merciful, even though he had received mercy from his master, very great mercy. He turned right around and treated other servants with no mercy. And what happened? Well, the master found out about this. And the master said, what? Are you telling me that that servant who owed me all that money, whose debt I canceled, he went and treated another servant with no mercy? Bring him back in here. And so the master called that servant back into him, and he said, because you did this, I'm going to judge you with no mercy. And the master made him pay the debt. And the dangerous thing about debts in the old world was that if you couldn't pay your debt, you could be sold into slavery, you could be thrown into prison, you might even be able to be put to death. And so the master was merciful to the servant chose to not be merciful to his debtor, and that led the master to choose to not be merciful to him, but to treat him the way that he treats others. And that's why it's important for us to be merciful, because the day is going to come for all of us, and this story is much more important than just our everyday lives. The day is going to come when we have to stand in the presence of Christ, and he is going to make a decision for eternity. He's going to decide to allow us to enter into heaven, and the only way that we can go to heaven is if he's merciful to us, because we are in great debt to God because of our sins. We deserve to go to hell. We've done many bad things. We don't do what we're supposed to do. We're not good servants. We don't glorify God with our lives, and God has a right to put us all in hell forever. That would be right. That would be fair. But God is merciful, and he tells us that he will judge us the way that we judge others. He will judge us on Judgment Day the way that we judge others. If we're merciful to others, he will be merciful to us. If we're not merciful to others, but we're like that servant who grabs others and says, pay me what you owe, and we're strict and we're mean and we have no mercy, That's how Christ says he's going to treat us on Judgment Day. He's going to do to us what we did to others. It's that simple. And so this lesson of the lion and the mouse is very important. We need to take being merciful very seriously. We need to be merciful if we want to go to heaven, because the only way we can go to heaven is if we're merciful, and Jesus, who is the judge, is merciful to us. We have to be merciful. Now you might ask, well, how can I be merciful? I want to be merciful, but how can I be merciful? Well, a very easy way is to forgive people. We say in the Lord's Prayer, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who sin against us. So forgiving people, when people do something wrong to you, you don't have to get angry and fight back. You don't have to make them pay you back. You don't have to complain and be nasty because they did something bad to you, because you do bad things too. And you're going to ask Jesus to not punish you for your sins. You're going to ask Jesus to be merciful to you. And so one thing that you can do to show mercy to others is be forgiving. Forgive others when they do bad things. If someone does something bad to you, don't get all upset about it, but think about the fact that you do bad things to God, and you're going to ask God to forgive you. And so you should show God that you are merciful by forgiving others. Another way to be merciful is to do the works of mercy. To do the works of mercy. If you study catechism, you'll learn about the works of mercy. There are two different kinds of works of mercy. There are corporal works of mercy that serve other men's bodies. And we can think of things like feeding the hungry, giving clothes to those who don't have any clothes, providing a safe place for homeless people, things like that, taking care of the sick, and so on. Those are works of mercy. Why are they works of mercy? Because we use our strength, we use our wealth, we use the things that we have to help other people. We look at others and we say, oh, I feel sorry for this person. He doesn't have anything to eat. I can share some of my food. I can buy him a meal. I can give him a jacket. I can get him some new shoes, help him find a place to stay. I can help someone who's sick. I can visit my uncle or my grandmother who's sick, and I can help out, take care of them, make sure they have what they need, make sure they're comfortable, make sure they're safe. I can be merciful. And those are called corporal works of mercy. And imagine standing before Jesus on Judgment Day with a life that was filled with works of mercy and asking Jesus to be merciful. Jesus will say, yes, I will be merciful because you were merciful. And another kind of works of mercy are called spiritual works of mercy that really help people's souls. And we can think of something simple like praying for other people, praying for people, asking God to help people, thinking about the needs of other people and praying for them. And that's not just living people who need things in this life. It's also souls of dead people who were Christians and died, and they may be in purgatory, praying that God would be merciful to them and allow them to enter into heaven. So prayer is a work of mercy. Another work of mercy, a spiritual work of mercy, is teaching people, helping people to learn. It's actually good for people's souls. In modern schools, there's no mercy. The kids compete against each other. They all compete to see who can get the highest score, who can get the highest rank, and they see each other as competitors rather than classmates who help each other. If you're studying at home, you may have younger brothers and sisters, and you could make fun of them or pick on them or call them dumb because they're in lower courses than you're in, or they're not as smart as you, or they're not studying stuff that you're studying, but that's not merciful. It would be better for you to ask if you can help them. Use your learning to help them learn. Be merciful to them. Be helpful to them. And so anytime that we learn something or have some skill or some knowledge, we can think about how we can teach someone else. And most importantly is to teach them the Christian faith. We learn the way of salvation, and we can teach that way to others. But anytime someone is ignorant, we can help them. We can be merciful to them by teaching them. What evil people do is when they find someone who's ignorant, or they find someone who doesn't have experience, what they do is take advantage of them. They trick them. They say, this person doesn't know how this works. I can trick him and get some money out of him pretty easily. Well, that's not merciful. And you're going to stand before Jesus, and you're ignorant compared to Jesus, and you're going to ask him to be merciful. And he's going to say to you, were you merciful? So teaching people, helping people, is another way to show mercy. Praying for people, teaching people, another way is to warn people who are doing bad things. If you see someone doing something bad, it's very cruel to let them just go do it, because they could go to hell for doing bad things. If you're merciful, you'll say to that person, hey, don't do that. Don't do that. You're going to get in trouble. You're going to get punished. I don't want you to get punished, so don't do that. Admonishing the sinner, telling someone to stop doing something bad, is actually merciful. Another way is to counsel the doubtful. Counsel the doubtful. That means when someone is doubtful, or they have a hard time believing, they have a hard time knowing what's right, they have a hard time making a good decision, you can give them some advice that gives them some hope. You can help them to overcome their doubts. That's another way to do mercy. So you can study that on your own. You can learn more about the works of mercy. But the moral of this fable of the lion and the mouse is to be like the lion. Don't use our strength or our riches or even our learning to beat up other people or to hurt other people or take advantage of other people, but be merciful. Think about other people. Be merciful, because the day is going to come. Maybe in this life, but even if it never comes in this life, it's going to come on Judgment Day, when you're going to be the one who needs mercy. And if you're not merciful to others, others will not be merciful to you. And you need mercy. Therefore, you need to be merciful to others. Be like the lion and show mercy. So this is Aesop's fable of the lion and the mouse. And I'd like to wrap this up because it's getting pretty long, but I think the moral lesson is very clear. Be merciful. Be like the lion. And those that you're merciful to, they'll come to your assistance. And even if no one ever does, or you're never in a situation like this, on Judgment Day, you'll stand before Jesus and you will ask him for mercy. And he will say to you, were you merciful? And if you say, no, I was not merciful, you're in real trouble. You need to live a life of mercy so that when Jesus asks you on Judgment Day, were you merciful? You can say, yes, Lord, I was merciful. So that's the fable of the lion and the mouse.